Business means Cami Knight here in the studio. Good evening to you, Cami. Great to see you. Donald Trump's announced another sweeping round of tariffs this Thursday. Take us through them.
Well, he had warned on social media that today was the big day.
Tariff Thursday.
Yeah, as it's known now. And we've just learned that he has decided to impose reciprocal tariffs on trading partners, saying that US allies were often worse than enemies when it comes to trade. They won't go into effect right away, but the White House says they could be imposed within weeks as Trump's team studies bilateral trade relationships. Let's hear from Trump.
Charging them, so it works out very well. It's a beautiful, simple system, and we don't have to worry about, gee, we're charging too much or too little. If you build here, you have no tariffs whatsoever, and I think that's what's going to happen. I think our country is going to be flooded with jobs.
Now, reciprocal tariffs were one of Trump's core campaign promises. They consist in putting in place a tax on imports that matches the rate that other nations charge the US. It's all part of Trump's "if they charge us, we charge them" strategy, and countries like India, Japan and the European Union are in the firing line. The tariffs should also take into account taxes like VAT, subsidies or other factors that the US president deems as unfair. It's likely US consumers will bear the brunt, Trump himself saying Americans should expect a rise in prices. Now, this announcement, of course, comes just ahead of Trump's meeting with Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi this Thursday, and Trump has just said India has some of the highest tariffs in the world. In 2022, the US average tariff rate on imports from India was 3%, whereas India's average tariff rate on imports from the US was 9.5%. The US's trade deficit with India has also deepened since Trump's first term in office, growing to $45 billion in 2024. As we've seen with Canada and Mexico, though, tariff threats have also been used by Trump as a negotiation strategy. Many believe Modi and Trump could reach an agreement that avoids or at least delays new tariffs on Indian exports. Take a listen.
I think Trump will seek to persuade India to buy more, particularly, I think, US defense equipment. But yes, if Trump seeks to raise tariffs on agricultural exports from India, if India does not open up the agricultural market, then I think India will probably dig its heels in to some extent.
Mexican businesses, meanwhile, are still in limbo after Trump's tariff threats. Mexico's auto industry depends heavily on exports to the US and represents nearly 4% of Mexican GDP, employing more than 1 million people. Quentin Duval and Laurence Cuvillier sent us this report.
Every day, this factory produces hundreds of parts to soundproof and protect new vehicles sold in the United States.
This little piece crosses the border about 4 times, and it's something no one sees. So imagine a rim or a steering wheel. It's much more.
Just like this little part, the Mexican automotive sector's entire production chain depends on suppliers and customers in the US and Canada. For now, this Mexican company is maintaining production at the usual rhythm. But faced with the threat of tariffs from Donald Trump, this CEO has put new investment on hold.
My first reaction was to talk to the other managers, to tell them that all projects were on hold while we saw what would happen. In our case, there's a machine that we had to buy from the United States. I called the manufacturer to tell him that we were going to wait to see how things developed so as not to be impacted.
Mexican automobile companies export 88% of their goods to the United States. Nonetheless, President Trump accuses Mexico of opening the door to Chinese companies. So as to reassure him, the sector is reorganizing its supply chains and reducing reliance on some suppliers.
We are working with the World Bank to strengthen the supply chain and to have many more Mexican or Mexican secondary companies to supply this automotive sector.
Donald Trump has just imposed 25% taxes on aluminium and steel. For the moment, other key imports like agricultural products are spared. But economists say the imposition of across-the-board tariffs would cause the Mexican economy to contract by 1 to 2%.
that's all for the business news, but I'll be back later with more updates.
Cami, thank you very much indeed. As we say, back later with more updates. The news continues here in France 24, and of course it never stops. Stay with us, short break, more after that.